And this episode today is sponsored by the Esoteric Academy, your at-home gym for all different unique workouts, health programs, courses, and community. If you've been looking for a way to get in shape, but you feel like you're too busy to go to the gym or too intimidated to go to the gym, no worries. The Esoteric Academy is your at-home stop for all your health needs. It only has master teachers, and if you are looking for something to get your butt in gear, to get healthy, but you can do it in the privacy of your own home, then the Esoteric Academy is for you. If you use discount code BRICE20, BRICE 20, all caps at checkout, you get the first 6 months of your tuition at the Esoteric Academy for 20% off. That's the first 6 months. That's half a year of a 20% discount on your tuition. Tuition includes 2 different tiers. One is only $25 a month, which gives you access to all of the exercise classes, which you have a full library full of workout classes with new workout classes coming 2 to 4 times a week. If you want to do the $40 tier, that also gives you access to all the health courses and spiritual courses as well as the exercise courses. On top of that, you get 7 days for free. So even if you just want to give it a try, you're just hearing about this and you just want to try it out, you can sign up, have 7 days for free, and if you decide it's not for you, you can always cancel your membership. So remember, use discount code BRICE20, BRICE 20 at checkout for the Esoteric Academy to get 20% off your tuition for the first 6 months. Everything will be down in the description box below. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Esoteric Atlanta. Of course, my name is Bryce, and yes, my hair is dark. I'm still probably in a couple of weeks going to go back a little bit to my natural, more natural color, but this has been fun to play with. But I wanted to do a special video today just to thank every single person out there who showed my boyfriend so much respect and so much love. He is a very private person. He struggles with publicity. He stresses about, I remember when he opened up Ashtanga Yoga Atlanta's Instagram account, he was really stressed about it. Like, he does not like attention on him. He just wants to teach and live his life. And so for him to sit down and to actually state his feelings was a big deal. And, they say that about people who are quiet when they talk usually means you should listen. And so I thank you guys for all your kindness and all of your support. For the people who are in the yoga community or the Ashtanga community that found my video because of what Todd was saying, I want to address something. Yes, I had to interrupt him quite a few times, and that is because we spoke about this before we started filming. My channel is not primarily a yoga channel. It's a deep dive channel. And I have so many incredible subscribers. I hate calling them friends that have been here on Esoteric Atlanta for years now. And they found my channel because of my deep dives. And so I wanted them, of course, to be a part of this conversation. Even though they're not in the Ashtanga community, some of them are not in the yoga community, I absolutely wanted them to be a part of the conversation with my boyfriend, because what's happening in the Ashtanga community is a really big lesson for everybody. And I wanted them to be able, they've been here since the beginning and they've contributed so much to the growth of this channel, and their voices matter too. And so we had talked about this. My boyfriend has never been on any other yoga practice but Ashtanga. He's only ever done traditional yoga. And unfortunately, in the Western world, people who are not in the yoga world, when they think of yoga, they automatically think of vinyasa flow, which is not what we practice. And so I had to kind of steer him in order to explain a little bit deeper in Ashtanga. Like a lot of communities, we have our own lingo, like we have words that we use that, like Mysore, that people outside of the community probably don't know what those words mean. Of course, we also intermix a lot of Sanskrit words with English words in conversation in the Ashtanga community because the practice is practiced in Sanskrit, which is the original language of the East. And so I needed to make sure that my audience who is not in our community understands what we're saying and why what's happening right now in the Ashtanga world is such a big deal. If my channel was only a yoga channel, I would not have interrupted him as much as I did. But it was strictly because I knew there were things he was saying that my audience majority of my audience members might not understand. And so I wanted to clarify that for them so that they could be a part of this conversation too. I didn't want to exclude anyone from this conversation. So again, if that upsets you, then I don't know what to tell you. My channel is not primarily a yoga channel, and that's why he knew. We talked about that beforehand, and because he has no idea where there's going to be misunderstandings because he's never been in any other world, he knew that I was going to have to interrupt him from time to time to give a broader explanation for what it is we were actually talking about. So that, just going to put that out there. Now, again, I thank everybody for so much support. And the main reason why we need to talk about this publicly is because what is happening is wrong. There's no two ways about this. This is not a case that's nuanced. This is flat out wrong, what is happening, first of all. Second of all, as many of you know, the last 5 years that I've been doing this, I have done a lot of deep dives into cults. I'm very fascinated with psychology and how I'm fascinated by narcissists and how they're able to maneuver and manipulate people to act outside of what would be their moral compass. And this past 5 years, we've worked with amazing ex-Scientologists. We've worked with ex-Mormons. We've also, my really good friend that I met through doing my research, Kelly Teal, who's a author of books. She was from Nexium. And so one thing is for certain, when we look at these cult survivors and we look at the organizations, we see certain patterning. We see certain programming, certain scripts are being played out. It doesn't matter what the organization is. It doesn't matter if it's something like Scientology or a self-help group like Nexium or the Branch Davidians, a religious group, or like a cycling club or a martial arts. It doesn't matter what the subjects, the crux of the organization is. When we have this insurrection of people who appear to have narcissistic personality disorder, we start to see the same script, the same isolation. It's all very similar. I hope that makes sense. And so for us, speaking out is multifaceted. There's multiple reasons for us to speak out. We're trying to protect people. We're trying to allow people the chance to have a second opinion, a second perspective on what's happening so that they are better informed and can make better choices. As I wrote in my community post a few days ago, one of the common themes with these cults is when they do inevitably self-destruct. Um, a lot of the members come out saying, "Gosh, I wish someone had said something. Why didn't somebody say something?" Well, we're saying something. From the very beginning, we're pointing out the red flags of what's happening in the Ashtanga community. We also speak out because it's sad. This is a lineage that my boyfriend, myself, Mariela, all of the people that have spoken out deeply love. And this lineage has, for a lot of us, saved us. I've laughed many times. You don't end up in a yoga shala because you're happy. Yeah, you don't end up going to India to study at 2 o'clock in the morning um, because you're happy. You're looking for something. And for a lot of us, this lineage, this practice has given us a deeper understanding of our own lives. It's giving us a deeper understanding of our place within our lives. It's giving us a deeper understanding of our own suffering and our own pain. And that this suffering and this pain in life is not to be avoided, but to be looked at and to be learned from, of the value of friction. This lineage is so unbelievably powerful. This lineage is the lineage that primarily is behind the Esoteric Academy. We want other lineages on as well, but for now, like all of the classes that I teach that are non-yoga classes, I am using the philosophy from Ashtanga to create these other classes too. That's how important this is to us. And to see it being desecrated by what appears to be an insurrection, a hostile takeover, um, is heartbreaking. And so we're saying something, we're warning people. This is a family business. Ashtanga Yoga is a family business. It is the Joyce family's business. So if we take spirituality out of it, that's what this is. That's what this is. And for us to try to insert ourselves into a family business, especially those of us who are not Indian, is is appalling. It almost feels like we're in the twilight zone seeing this happen. Again, I brought up the Branch Davidians on my community post, and I really hope we're going to be traveling here soon. Once I get back, I really want to sit down with my friend Nora. Nora, hi, if you're watching. I want to talk to my friend Kelly. I want to really hand this story over to some cult survivors so that they can look at this from their own lens of experience. They're not yoga practitioners, but they've been through what I feel like is the same shit show that we're seeing right now. And so, and they have no, my boyfriend and I spoke about that this morning. If my friend Nora, for example, she has no emotional ties to this lineage. She's non-biased. She just doesn't, but she can see it. And that's why I think it's important that I also bring Kelly Teal from Nexium, all these people that have had experiences in other organizations that are running the same programming. They will probably be able to see stuff that even I'm not seeing because they're not emotionally tied to the community, if that makes sense. So, Nora, if you're watching, drop a comment if you would be interested in talking this over with me when I get back from traveling. It's going to be crazy here until the end of July. But that's why this is so important. And I have said before many times for myself, my experience with Ashtanga Yoga, I've been very, very, very lucky because I have only had teachers that have never, ever shown any signs of wanting to dominate me or wanting to create an isolated, insular cult. Because we're dealing, like I just said, nobody shows up at yoga because they're happy, right? Nobody, I guarantee you, most of the Scientologists can say nobody wanders into take a personality test because their life is perfect, right? There's a vulnerability there. And that vulnerability in human beings, in my opinion, is sacred. We need that vulnerability. We need that suffering in order for us to change, in order for us to seek out purpose. So, this is a very sacred aspect of the human condition, right? It's not wrong to suffer. It's not wrong to be uncomfortable. That's actually the spark that a lot of us need to move forward in self-discovery or discovery of God, but whatever that is, that going in that gnosis to dive into that inner knowing. But what happens sometimes is that when you have a group of people who are in a vulnerable situation and you are in a place of authority, if the person who is in a place of authority is not healthy themselves, that's when trouble is amiss. And that's when these vulnerable people tend to cling to safety. And this is all, in my opinion, very subconscious. They tend to cling to the safety of the leader who seems to have their shit together. And it's usually a curated appearance of having their shit together, right? It's not real. But you've got people who become devoted to this enigma, this person that they think can give them all the answers. And the responsibility of that not happening lies with the leader. So it lies for our community, the responsibility of that not happening lies with the teacher. And again, I have had amazing teachers. So David Garrigues, absolutely nothing like any type of cult leader. He did not pry into our lives outside of yoga. He would be there to help us out and support us when we needed him, when we asked for his help. He never got involved in he didn't even like talking about diets. Like he would never, there were times when people would ask him questions in a conference and he'd just be like, I don't know, or I can't answer that for you. He was very responsible and he's a very popular teacher. He is one of the very few people who are certified from Patabi Joyce. And he's very hands-on in the Mysore room. So in the classroom, he's very hands-on, but outside of the classroom, he's not at all. And I respect that because that creates a boundary between the student and the teacher because the teacher is facilitating a philosophy. The teacher is facilitating a practice, a lineage that is not theirs. I don't own Ashtanga yoga. It's not mine. I can't make you an Ashtanga teacher. I'm just here to give you the gift of this structured system so that you can experience that gift in the way that you need to. And everybody is going to experience it in slightly different ways depending on who they are and what their karma is. Same thing with Sharath in India. When we go to India, it is very similar to the way like a university would be run or a small school would be run. All I had to do is just show up to my classes. Sharath had no idea where I was living. He had no idea what I was doing outside of class, outside of school. He didn't know when I was flying in, what I was eating, who I was hanging out with, who my partner was. Well, he obviously knew for me who my partner was, but he doesn't get involved. If you I know so many people who would be having something going on in their personal lives, and they would schedule a meeting with Sharath because you could schedule meetings with him. And they would always come out and be like, well, he didn't tell me what to do. He just spoke to me in metaphors. That's what he does. He did it to me too, because he's not going to tell you what to do. He's just not. Like that's not his place. And he knew that as a teacher that his place is to teach you yoga. His place is to help you with this theory and this philosophy. His place is to do all that he can, but your job is to integrate it because that's all you can. As a teacher, I've said it before, we can lead a horse to water, but we can't force them to drink. In a cult situation, though, the opposite is going to happen. There's going to be isolation. You're going to see signs of the leader trying to control you outside of yoga. And those are red flags, right? Those are absolutely red flags. And Todd does a really good job at Ashtanga Yoga Atlanta. He does a really good job at keeping that boundary up between himself and his student. He loves his students. Trust me, if you are a student at AYA, I feel like I know all of you because he speaks so highly of all of his students. He has so much respect for his students, but he also that's the key word, he respects them, right? Like he's not a good teacher knows they know not that they don't know everything. And a good teacher is not going to interrupt somebody's karma. A good teacher is going to allow their students the space to really integrate this into their lives in whatever capacity and let it play out the way it needs to in an individual's life. Okay. And I have been so lucky again because I've never this information put in the wrong hands could become disastrous, as we're seeing now. But put into the right hands, it can be very healthy. And yeah, so I spoke about the Branch Davidians on my community post. And again, I've studied multiple cults. And this reminds me, I keep telling my boyfriend that this just reminds me so much of what happened with the Branch Davidians. If you guys don't know the Waco situation from the 90s, remember the Waco situation? So, from my understanding, from my research into the Branch Davidians and what happened with David Koresh, the Branch Davidians, if I remember correctly, they're an offshoot of Seventh-day Adventist. Now, absolutely, there are culty things when it comes to like fundamentalist religions for sure, but just because a fundamentalist religion might have some culty traits doesn't necessarily make them a cult. And that is what, from my research, it seems like was happening with the Branch Davidians before David Koresh. It was just a very religious sect, very conservative religious sect, but the leader, who was a woman at the time, was not running a cult, right? She was just a religious leader. There wasn't this severity of control that came with David Koresh. Now, I say that it's so much that what's happening with the Ashtanga world is so much like that because when this female leader, she was an older woman, passed away, that's when David Koresh took over. And he came in, I know she had some sons. It was very similar to what's going on in the Ashtanga world, where he just kind of, he was a, we'll say for lack of a better word, a student of hers. And he came in, he elbowed his way up to the top, took control. And then all of a sudden, over years of him dominating this group, forcing things to happen like polygamy, polyamory, whatever you want to call it, just very communal type stuff, but not in the positive sense, started to happen. It was a slow, it was like putting the, as my boyfriend says, death by a thousand cuts, right? Or putting the slow boil of the frog in the water, right? Till all of a sudden we have a standoff in Waco. And I compare, and I'm not saying that it's going to come to that type of a resolution in the Ashtanga world. I'm not saying that at all. I don't know. I mean, it could. I don't know. But it's very similar. What is happening with these group of teachers that are trying to hijack this lineage is very similar to what happened with the Branch Davidians. Sharat passed away, and they elbowed their way in to take control and dominance. And it's interesting, and I've said this for a while, those that scream the loudest are usually the ones that are the most guilty. And these people, notoriously, this small group of teachers are so annoying on their social media because they're such virtue signalers. If they constantly post about the dangers of white privilege, they're white. They constantly preach about cultural appropriation. They constantly preach about believe all women, support all women. I mean, it got to the point where on their social media, it was just freaking enough. Okay, we get it. Enough is enough. Like, here I am, a white woman, and I'm not saying shit on my social media about it because I'm a human being who knows where I can thrive and where I need to back off, right? Like, I believe all races are beautiful, all cultures are beautiful, and we can experiment with each other's cultures, but we have to have respect, right? And so it's ironic to me that this group of people who get on their soapbox, who virtue signal about specifically these three things, white privilege, cultural appropriation, and believing and supporting all women, are the ones who have created this insurrection, who have come into a culture that's not theirs. We know that as white students. We know that. I've always known that. I'm never going to be a Param guru because I'm not Indian and I'm not Brahmin. And I'm totally fine with that because I'm a white girl from Georgia and I happen to like being a white girl. I love my culture. Because two things can be true, right? I can respect the Indian culture and respect the Indian teachings, but also love my own culture too and know my place. That it's not my place to climb to the top. My place is to respect the Indian culture, whether I like it or not. There's some things that bother me about the Indian culture, but some things I love about the Indian culture. But my place is to respect it. I'm a guest when I'm in India and I'm there studying. I'm a guest in their country. I'm a guest. And yes, some of the things I don't like about, as a woman, I have to cover my shoulders, I have to cover my knees. I do not like this. I find that not fun, but I do it. And men do too. Men are supposed to do that as well. But I do that because that's their culture. It's not my culture to change. That's their culture. They're very conservative in a lot of ways that we aren't. And I just have to respect that because I'm a guest in that country. I'm a guest, even though I'm a student at the Joyce family's yoga institution, yoga school, and I've paid my tuition, I'm still a guest. They have invited me, they've accepted me into the school, so I need to respect the culture, right? That just should happen. And so therefore, as a white woman, I've always known that there's no way in hell I'm ever going to be like, I never wanted that anyway. Like, that's not my place. Like, I don't care how far I get in the practice. I don't care. I went to dive deeper into this practice for my own healing, for my own deeper understanding of God. I never signed up to take this or applied to go to KPJYI to dominate. That's never, that was never my intention at all. Now there is a quote that my boyfriend has told. It's a newer quote, and I cannot remember. My mind's gone blank. The person who said this, I'll have to ask him because I'm going to use this more. Where he says, "The truth is belligerent. The truth is belligerent." The truth doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about how it affects you. It's just the truth, and it's belligerent. And what's driving me crazy, and listen, we've gotten overwhelming support, obviously. The flying monkeys, and we know, I mean, we know that a lot of the trolls are bot accounts and sock accounts. I mean, the main woman behind this has told people she has sock accounts. So like it's no secret that this is all sock accounts. And the truth is belligerent. It doesn't, you have come in there and you have hijacked a lineage. If you don't want to get your feelings hurt because people are saying something, then you shouldn't have done that to begin with. Actions have consequences. You would think as a yoga student, you would understand that. That's called karma, cause and effect. But in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I don't think anybody's ever told Keno McGregor no. My boyfriend made a good observation too. He said, if you allow people to only throw perfume on you, you will never realize when you've shit the bed. And I believe, in my opinion, that Keno McGregor, Tim Feldman, David Robson, all these, they've shit the bed. And they can't even self-reflect. They don't even have the tools to self-reflect, which really shows you that they haven't been practicing yoga because yoga is all about self-reflection because they can't even register that they've done something wrong. They can't even like acknowledge that what they're doing is wrong. It's wrong. And they've got their flying monkeys that throw perfume on them so much that they think that their shit doesn't stink. And again, I don't think anybody, in my opinion, that I don't think anyone's ever told Keno no. I don't think she's ever been told no before. And what, you're in your 50s now? I think you're like 10 years older than me. Like, and, again, one of the signs, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, as my boyfriend says, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. But in my opinion, what we're seeing is malignant narcissistic personality disorder. I've had my own opinions. I've done videos requesting Keno behave better before. I've invited her to come on my channel to talk about it. She went around, tried to privately message my boyfriend. It was crazy, very manipulative, very much triangulation, which is one of the tactics that narcissists use is triangulation. That's what they do. So that was not surprising. Um, but another thing narcissists do is they have double standards. And that's going into the virtue signaling. So they'll virtue signal on their social media, like I was just saying, white privilege, cultural appropriation, believe all women, they virtue signal, virtue signal, virtue signal, but they have a double standard for themselves. Rules for thee, but not for me. So even though right now they're blatantly doing all three of those things, busting in, elbowing their way to the front into a culture that's not theirs, white people, culturally appropriating a culture that's not theirs as white people, and ignoring Saraswati, who is the rightful Param guru, a woman, a brown woman. So they are not following what they tell other people to do. That's a double standard. They expect us to behave and not, force our white culture onto people, not force our listen to all women. They want us to do that, but not for them. They're different. They're special. They get to break the rules. That's the narcissist. That's what narcissists do. It's textbook narcissism. So I end with this. All of these sock accounts, these bots, these flying monkeys, which only really exist on Reddit, which I never even get on Reddit. Reddit is just a cesspool of bad behaved people and bots and flying monkeys. Like that's all Reddit is. So I don't even have an account on Reddit. I don't use Reddit for research that much because it's not it's Wikipedia is more reliable than Reddit, right? And that's where we see a lot of this gross behavior is on Reddit. Nowhere else, just on Reddit. Um, with all the sock accounts, the bad behavior, everything. You guys have still yet to answer our question. You tap dance around it. What about Saraswati? Why do you think that you have the right to take this lineage from Saraswati? As my boyfriend said, when Sharat passed away, and from a lot of us, I think majority of us teachers, We automatically deferred to Saraswati. It was no question that she was now, well, first of all, the lineage was not my first thought when I found out my teacher passed away. My first thought was grief. Grief that this happened, shock. I was worried about his widow. I was worried about his young children. And I was worried about Saraswati as a mother losing her son. I kept saying over and over and over again to my boyfriend, because Sharat passed away here in America. And I kept saying, I can't imagine what Shruti, his wife, is going through right now, having to get on an airplane unexpectedly and fly to America to get her husband's body. I can't fathom. He was 53. He was expected to come back home. This was not on their bingo card for 2024 when this happened in November of 2024. I kept saying that over and over again. Oh my God, I just feel so bad for Shruti. I can't imagine what she's going through. I can't imagine what Saraswati is going through. His mother, Sharmila, his sister. I can't imagine. That was my first thought. It wasn't about the lineage or who's in charge. I felt empathy and compassion for the family and grief for them, as well as for us, his students, but our grief is secondary to his family. My next thought was Saraswati's in charge now. Who's in charge? Saraswati. Now, in India, it's starting to change. And I believe Iyengar was the first person to kind of kick off this change, where he allowed his daughter and son to be co-Param gurus when he passed away. But for many generations, creeping into our modern times, in Indian culture, a daughter never would have become the Param guru. It would have gone to the son. So Saraswati is the daughter of Pattabhi Jois. Um, she was his only daughter. He had two other sons. Saraswati, we have nothing on her. This woman was born into yoga. Both her father, Pattabhi Jois, and her mother were students of Krishnamacharya. This woman, from the time she could walk, was surrounded by yoga, surrounded by it. For most of her childhood into her early adulthood, her family, even though they were Brahmins, were very poor because her father was a very obscure yoga teacher. He only taught the locals. And then one day, a white person showed up. And Saraswati was there the whole time. In the main shala, there are pictures of Saraswati as a very young girl, probably what, 8, 9, 10, doing very advanced asana work. She was not given a choice. This was her family lineage. She had to practice yoga. So throughout her whole life, she's intensely practicing yoga. She's watching her father accept Western students, which was new for India. All of a sudden, Western students, white people are coming over. They had to start to learn a little bit about Western culture in order to teach these white people. And then over time, more and more white people were coming over. Over time, more and more. And with that came the growth of their wealth. They got wealthier. With that came her father being asked to go and tour sometimes and teach in America, teach in Europe, to spread this by his students, inviting him over so she would tour with him. Now, she did all this knowing that she would never be the Param Guru because she was his daughter. Think about old monarchies where the daughter, they want a son because the son is the prince, right? As Saraswati's getting married, having her own children, having Sharat and Sharmila, now we've got the next generation, she watches one of her brothers, unfortunately, pass away. Then it's down to her brother, Manju. Manju ends up moving to America and teaching in America. He's still in California teaching. He marries an American woman. So all of a sudden, Pattabhi Jan's sons are out of the picture. So who's the next boy in line? Sharat, her son. So at a very young age, all of a sudden, Sharat, Saraswati's son, has all this pressure on him. Now he's got to be in line to take over this lineage. And Sharat, part of me, I've said this before, is I think Sharat would have probably been happier being an engineer. But he did his family duty and took over the lineage. This whole time, Saraswati was teaching. She had her own Mysore room. She taught women in India. Over time, as Patabi Joyce passed away in 2009, Sharat took over. She started accepting more students as well. So the Shala had two different Mysore programs going on, Sharat's Mysore program and his mother's Mysore program. People seem to think that Sharat is the only, in saying that, even though he is the Param Guru, he's the head of the lineage by default of being a boy, people tend to seem to think that he's the only one that will authorize and certify. That is not true. Saraswati has also authorized and certified people. She's just a little bit more, I don't want to say stingy. She's a little bit more, she's harder. She demands more. She doesn't authorize people at the rate that her son does. It takes a lot for Saraswati to grant somebody authorization or certification, and I can respect that. I can absolutely respect that because this woman, no matter how famous her family got, no matter how much money, they're probably the wealthiest family in South India at this point, no matter how wealthy they got, she has remained humble. She has remained dedicated to teaching this practice. Saraswati is a quiet woman, kind of like Todd, my boyfriend, very, very quiet. So when she speaks, you know it's important to listen. I've had the pleasure of spending a lot of time with Saraswati and Sharmela, Sharat's sister. I've been up in her house before. I've never been to Sharat's house, but I've been to his mother's house. I've gone down there and had chai with them and just socialize. I've spent time with her, with my boyfriend when he came back and was greeted warmly by her. And Sharmela, I love Sharmela. Sharmela, Sharat's sister, as we say in the South, she's delightful. She's delightful. She's funny. She's very entertaining. Where Sharat was more quiet and introverted and passive, Sharmela was the life of the party. She was so fun to talk to. If Sharmela sees this, like I have such amazing experiences with his sister. And Sharmela is also a part of this lineage, least we forget. I got to know Sharmela because as Saraswati was getting older and Sharmela, who lived in Bangalore, her kids were getting older. She was spending more time in Mysore, helping her mom, helping the school, working, assisting, all that kind of stuff. Because least we forget, she also, like her brother, was raised in this yoga family. I mean, Sharmela, I struggled with arthritis. I've kind of talked about that from time to time, and it got really bad like in the mid 2010s. And Sharmela also has arthritis, and we would sit and talk about it and kind of bitch about it, how painful it can be at times. And she would just randomly sometimes send me messages and be like, "Hey, how are you feeling? How's your?" She didn't have to do that, right? There was nothing she was gaining from asking. She was genuinely concerned about, very empathetic. Sharmela is amazing. Like I said, as we say here in the South, she's delightful. I felt very comfortable with Sharmela. She's a girl's girl. Again, she's funny. She's fun. Um, I just really enjoy Sharmela, and my heart goes out to her losing her brother. Like that's hard. And obviously her nieces and nephews, like she's got to help take care of them now. And so, with all that being said, just to give that backstory, like Saraswati, when after the dust settled with Sharat, for most of us, we just knew that guess what? Saraswati's in charge now. She's been teaching this whole time. She's been authorizing people this whole time. She's been certifying people this whole time. She is 84 years old. If for I've been practicing for 19 years. I'm 42. You know how long Saraswati's been practicing? 84 years. None of us, I was not born into a yoga. I'm a white girl from Georgia. I was not born into a yoga family. I was born Presbyterian. No one in my family practices yoga. They might do the odd vinyasa flow class here and there, but they're not invested in so I can appreciate the Joyces for opening up their school for us Westerners. And Sharmela and Saraswati opened up their home to me, invited me in with a few other people for chai, served me chai. This is the Joyce family's business. This is not Keno McGregor's business. Keno McGregor got famous off of Ashtanga. She's a teacher, but this is not her family business. She's no different from me. She's no different from Todd. She's just a teacher of this stuff. Her signature means nothing. My signature means nothing on an authorization form. It means nothing. Saraswati's signature, though, means something. Patabi Joyce's signature meant something. Sharat's signature meant something. Sharmela's signature means something. Why is it okay to push Saraswati to the side? That is my big question to Keenan McGregor, to Tim Feldman, David Robson, all the people who got certified. We still don't know who signed that certification. Interesting that they're keeping that very quiet. Did anybody sign it? Is there a signature? Whose signature's on it? Because there's two signatures right now that would actually grant you that certification. That's Saraswati, first of all, and then secondarily, Sharmila. Possibly Manju. He's in California though, but his signature means something. Manju's signature means something too. So who signed your certification? Did Saraswati give you permission? Did she bless you to be certified? Did Sharmila? Did Manju? Because if none of those three did that, then you're just pretend certified. You're just playing pretend. I used to play pretend when I was a kid. With my cousins, we would play pretend all the time, but I'm 42. Now, we don't play pretend anymore at 42. So who signed your certification? And why is it okay to lie to people? Why is it okay to steal? That's like Yoga 101. We don't do that. We don't, that's why I say this is trashy. Class doesn't matter how much money you have. You can have super rich people who are trashy, and you can have very poor people who are classy. Again, I ask you, what about Saraswati? How do you justify Saraswati? How do you justify for the supporters of these thugs? How do you justify your cult leaders pushing Saraswati to the side, but yet you virtue signals, you social justice warriors about believing all women, especially minority women. Of course, in India, Saraswati is not a minority because that she's Indian, but I think you guys understand what I'm saying here. What about Saraswati? I don't want to hear about how many followers Kino has on Instagram or YouTube. That means nothing. Most of those are bought anyway. I know that. They're things you know when you get to know these people. I've known these people for a long time. And fame means nothing. It doesn't mean you're a good teacher. Stop confusing the two. Some of the best teachers I've ever had were not famous. Fame doesn't give you integrity. But if you are famous, if you do have, I don't have as many followers as Kino, but I have a lot of followers on YouTube. So with great power comes great responsibility. So I'm using my platform to speak up. What about Saraswati? Explain to us why it's okay for you, a white American, to come in and push Saraswati to the side. Why is that okay? Justify that for us. Because in my mind, you're not the Param Guru. Saraswati is. She's the boss now, not you. You're just one of my peers. You're just a student. That's it. I have nothing to learn from you, but I have things I can still learn from Saraswati. I implore you guys in the yoga world to go and study cults. What we are seeing is the forming of a cult. And the fact that they're having their minions send us emails telling us to shut up, telling us to take down our YouTube channels, to take down our blog post, X, Y, and Z, is so. If you're not doing anything wrong, then you wouldn't care if people are speaking out. I don't give a shit that there are trolls on Reddit. I don't care. That that means nothing to me. Have you seen what I've been through on YouTube? I'm good. And I know I can sleep at night because I'm doing the right thing. I'm speaking up. And let me tell you something. I've said this before. In Eastern spirituality, honoring your ancestors is very important to honor your ancestors. And so I take that, I value that. And so for my yoga colleagues who don't know this, I know my subscribers on YouTube know this, I've talked about this. I am the direct descendant. Well, I'm a direct descendant of the royal family as well, but that I'm not even going to talk about them because they're like you guys. I'm not proud of them. Um, but I'm a direct descendant from two men, from my dad's line and my mom's line, two men who picked up arms. One was 17 years old and the other was 18 years old. And they picked up arms and they went up against the greatest military that had ever existed, ever existed. And this wasn't warfare like we see today. This was the 1700s, 1775 to be exact. And they picked up arms because they believed in something. They believed and they were passionate about this idea, this silly idea that all human beings are created equal and that all human beings are given certain inalienable rights by our Creator. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These two men, who I directly cut my great, 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 whatever grandfathers, believed in freedom. They believed in something. They were freedom fighters. They did something heroic. Only 3% of the colonists actually participated in the revolution. They weren't expected to win. They knew by doing this they were probably going to be executed as traitors as for treason. Something miraculous happened though. They won. They won freedom, not necessarily for themselves, but for me, for their descendants. They went off to get married, have children, because here I am. My father is a registered son of the American Revolution. He's registered as a descendant. My mother is a registered daughter of the American Revolution. She's registered through her line through that descendant. So I, by default of being both of their kid, I have two ancestors, and I honor those ancestors every single day. I honor them by speaking up. They risked their lives for something they believed in. All I have to do is speak up and tell the truth. So for all these flying monkeys, all of these sock accounts, these insurrectionists, that's what you are, that's what you're doing. You want to throw that word insurrection around, that's what you're doing when you go and hijack something. That's what it means, hijacking. You're an insurrectionist. That's what you are. By definition, keynote him, you're an insurrectionist. That's what you are. I don't come from a line of weak people. I come from very courageous people, very brave people, very smart people. And I honor my ancestors' day by continuing their legacy of doing what's right, no matter how uncomfortable it is. And that's the yoga, isn't it? Yoga's about being uncomfortable. I'm speaking up for what's right. And I'm not going to shut up. You can send your flying monkeys all you want. You're not going to triangulate my boyfriend. It was hysterical that you tried to do that. We have the messages. You tried to do that. You tried to triangulate my boyfriend and me. And the funny thing is, I had heard a story before a long time ago. I had heard somebody tell me, I was in India, that you had done that you had tried to triangulate a couple. And I didn't believe them at the time. I was like, no, I don't think she would do that. She's married. I just don't. And then when that happened to me, I was like, damn, that person was right. Because you're trying to triangulate, or instead of just talking to me, which I invited you to come on my channel, you tried to go and hit on my boyfriend. We have the messages. He didn't respond, of course. He was like, he showed me immediately. Gross, like gross. It's gross, tacky, trashy. When you could have just messaged me. But you wanted to try to triangulate my boyfriend against me to get me to shut up. I'm not stupid. I don't come from stupid people. And that's not cool, Kino. That's not cool. As a woman, that's not cool. That's not what you do. But obviously, you're not afraid to hurt other women because you've pushed Saraswati aside. So I ask you this, in all honesty, what about, can you please answer our question? The one question we have, what about Saraswati? Why can't you answer this question? None of your sock accounts have answered this question. None of your flying monkeys have answered this question. All they've done is just try to defend you. You don't need to be defended. What about Saraswati? Why won't you answer that question? From one woman to another woman, protect another woman named Saraswati and answer the question. Saraswati is in charge, not you. Sharmella is in charge, not you. I have been begging you to do the right thing, to come on my channel, to talk about it, to explain why you feel like you have a right to do this. You won't do it. That speaks volumes. So again, I ask before I sign off to all the Ashtanga community, what about Saraswati?